So
Yeah, so
what
we
do
have
you
to be.
think of these mainstream intellectuals who oppose to identity politics? We have Sargon of Akkad, we have Jordan Peterson saying that they essentially refuse to even talk of the subject, they dismiss it, and it's like identity politics is the worst thing possible. What would you reply to this?
Well, some of them blatantly support identity politics for non-whites, right? Charlie Kirk being an example. TPUSA has like the Black Supporters of Capitalism Club, and like they have all of these like meetings and subdivisions for their minority groups, except for white people, obviously. And that's probably because TPUSA is like it's probably 95% white or something. Minorities aren't remotely interested in that stuff. But what I will say is, I think they're fundamentally incorrect about identity politics. And at the end of the day, what it really comes back to is I don't feel the need to justify anything that is in the best interest of my group, right? And we're not talking about like, extremely unethical things that would benefit the group. We're just talking about identity politics. We're talking about promoting, sane, humane policies that would benefit our group. We're talking about changing immigration laws. We're talking about enforcing immigration laws that are already on the book, enforcing, you know, uh, furthering freedom of association. And obviously today with the thing that you talked about earlier with the cake and the bakery, all of that is a great win for freedom of association. But in the case of Sargon, he always comes back to John Locke, as if John Locke is totally this racial egalitarian who would be totally against identity politics. Look, individualism and identity politics can absolutely coexist, right? And the first, as reactionaries, particularly Catholic reactionaries, neo-reactionaries, are quite fond of pointing out is that the original ethno-nationalists were actually classical liberals, right? France for the French people. That was kind of like the rallying cry of the French Revolution, right? John Locke supported slavery and all kinds of other things. So the idea that John, just read John Locke and you'll arrive at this enlightened, colorblind, variety of classical liberalism. It's really absurd. It's really ahistorical, and I think that Sargon is just kind of at a loss for finding, classical liberal intellectuals who actually back up what he believes.
Absolutely. This idea that he makes and that I've heard many mainstream intellectuals make that who refuse to engage with identity politics, they say identity politics is collectivism, but it's not necessarily. Individuals of a group can realize that their individual actions are meaningless and they can decide through their liberty to form an association with others, and they can decide that this restricted group of people can do better things than any of its parts alone. That is not collectivism, because you do not abandon your individual rights. You just think that your individual rights are better protected when you realize that you have an interest in associating with people like you.
Absolutely, and that's very reminiscent of social contract theory, which again is a product of the Enlightenment and of classical liberalism. America was highly individualistic, and it also was racially conscious. Right, the two absolutely can exist. And as I touched on earlier, within Identity Europa, you can have almost any opinion on things like your favorite form of government, your religious beliefs, and your favorite type of economics. And like we respect that you're your own man, and you can see things your own way. Like you don't have to be an identitarian or a nationalist. You don't have to enter into some like Volkish hive mind where we all think the same way, and everyone is united in this like like a hive mind or something. It's not like that at all. And again, Sargon and other contemporary classical liberals have an ahistorical understanding of classical liberalism and what these people that they worship, like Rousseau, like John Locke, actually believed on things like identity and race.